Welcome. I call this Iowa City Community School Board meeting on Tuesday, May 22nd, 2018 to order. My name is Janet Godwin, and I want to thank those in the audience, those watching on television, and those following on Twitter for joining us tonight. I'll start by introducing those at the table with me. To my right, Superintendent Steve Murley and Directors Ruthina Malone, Phil Hemingway, Lori Rotland, J.P. Clausen, Sean Eystone, Paul Ressler, and Kristen Peterson, Recording Secretary. The public is reminded that if they wish to speak, they need to complete a speaker form found at the table in the lobby and turn it in. During community comment, persons may speak to the board about topics relevant to the district. All community comment directed at non-agenda items and agenda items shall take place at the beginning of the meeting during the community comment section of the agenda. And before we go into community comment, I want to make a remark about Kevin Hoyland and his fantastic service to the school district. 30 plus years, I understand, and he's been running school board meetings super effectively. And I know he's leaving early tonight, but I want to say from the board's perspective, thank you for everything you've done. Thank you. Thank you. Good luck in retirement. We wish you all the best. So with that, we'll move into community comment. First up, Mazahir Salih, and following Mazahir, we have Beth Noller. Hello.
Good to see you all. Thank you for everything you do. I'm going to be quick. My name is Mazahir Salih. I am a parent of 5 children who goes at the Iowa City School District. One of them is 8th grader who go to Northwest Junior High. And I have one 6th grader who's going to be definitely next year for the Northwest Junior High. I'm here today to talk to you as a concerned parent who just care about this community. On April 20, I received an email from the superintendent that Laura Cottrell will be taking a new role as a part of the superintendent leadership team at the Education and Service Center to provide support in the district programming. And I am quoting, he said, Laura will provide assistance in system-wide equity intervention programming, including restorative justice training and implementation, peaceful conflict resolution strategy, and community building circle training. And he also thanks Laura for her service as a principal at Northwest Junior High, and he's looked forward to the assistance that she will be providing the district in her new role. And he wants us to join him to congratulate Laura on her new roles. Sound very, very good to me. It looked like a promotion, and everyone should be happy when they get promoted. The question that I would like to ask and hold the superintendent and all the board accountable is that, is this really are you really promoting Laura? I ask this question because this sounds very familiar to me. When I was looked back 2 years ago, I remember what happened to Amber, the principal at Northwest Junior High. It looks like we are repeating the same scenario because the district also created a position for Amber. As soon as her contract ended, she was gone. Is that the plan for Laura? I hope the answer no, because our district is way better than that. I think we should work hard to retain leaders who are people of color. What is really worried me is the new position is created position. When Amber's position ended, both she and the position were gone. No one has been hired for the same position since then. I do not know how long Laura has left to finish her contract. I think she is in her 3rd year as a principal. I am going to assume that she has 1 to 2 years left, her contract. The question is she going to be given a new contract for her new position? Because restorative justice training and implementation needed more than 2 years to be implemented in our school district. The last question, has Laura been given option to stay as a principal? Because when you are promoting someone, you should have given them a choice if to accept the promotion or to continue their position. During the last 2 years, while my son was in 7th and 8th grade, I like Laura as a principal, and now I start hearing from the community and people of color, they are very disappointed when they hear that Laura is leaving. Iowa City School District population has completely changed during the last 5-6 years. More students of color are attending the school district, and I want to see us hiring more principal and administration of color and giving them the support they need. Why bringing them and then send them home and destroy their career? The superintendent said in his email, and I quote it, Laura has been 3 years as assistant principal at Core High School in Chicago, Illinois, before she took the because she took the position as a principal at Northwest Junior High, which means if she stayed at the same school, by now she would have been a principal as well. I have learned that Amber is still looking for a job. If Amber never took the job at the school district, she would have been working at the same school she was before. If the school goal is in hiring people of color to send them home and destroy their career, do not do it. Do not hire them at the first place. I will leave you with this question. Are you sending Laura home and repeating the same thing what happened to Laura? If not, we would like to see a contract for her new job. Thank you.
Thank you. Beth, and then Denise Dickel.
Today, I'm wearing an educational research hat. Some use data to cure insomnia, but I get energized by them. And as strange as it may seem, I have read the school climate survey report from cover to cover. There are 200 graphs and charts, and I find it fascinating. And many compliments to Dr. Sarah Brooks and her colleagues for an excellent work. I am distressed, though, that the sensational-seeking media has distorted and misled readers. I would like to correct some of the thinking in the few brief moments that I have. I'll focus on a few points that I feel are relevant to the issue of the implementation of new curriculum for the school district. First of all, self-report survey data, as is demonstrated in here, should be understood as that. This was evident by two questions that I found quite revealing. The first one was, a statement said, I am accepting of all those different than myself. 91% of the students affirmed this statement, but when asked, students in the school respect each other's differences, only 77% responded positively. Let that 14% difference of self-perception and how others are perceived temper our interpretation of self-report data. The second point I'd like to make, when discussing significance, there is statistical differences, but not practical differences. You might consider a ding on your car to be significant compared to the surface area on your car door, but are you willing to pay $5,000 or $10,000 to fix it? One would expect many significant differences in a study of this magnitude, but how many of them are really practically relevant? Take, for an instance, there are 29 graphs and references made to gender, male, female, and a third category, which is called non-binary, represents 1% of the respondents. If you look at the bar graphs, each bar graph width is the same width, but the third one, non-binary, represents only 1%. There are an infinite number of 1% groups in the Iowa City school districts. We might as well be considering those who have naturally occurring red hair or white hair. The practicality of implementing special curricula for small subcategories needs to be reevaluated. The LGBTQ category represents 11% of the sample, but African American students represent 16%. Students whose parents have a high school degree or less are 15%. Free and reduced lunch recipients represent 31%. Where are the advocates for these these much larger groups that feel harassed and feel unsafe? Let's consider a set of statements regarding respectful treatment by teachers. African American and multinationality students felt less respected than LGBTQ students. Students in general noted that harassment and bullying was more frequently observed for poverty and race rather than gender identity. Bullying was more frequent due to disability than sexual orientation. As stated in the executive summary, there are many positive trends from last year's climate data. Three that I see as relevant are: one, students having increased respect for differences. 2, there is a valuing of diversity and inclusiveness. And 3, there is a disciplinary equity. I know my observations in this short period of time do not do justice to the survey report, but my goal is to show you that subgroups of students that are larger in size than the LGBTQ subgroup are harassed and bullied, and they have a sense of lack of respect and feel unsafe. Therefore, I consider it unadvisable to adopt the proposed curriculum. It does not address the larger issues of teacher empowerment, respect for authority, and respect for other students, whomever they may be.
Thank you. Denise Dickel, followed by Ann Staley.
Thank you for receiving our comments tonight. I am Denise Dickel, 970 Maplewood Drive, Corville. Our children attended Iowa City schools, and I'll be addressing the LGBTQ curriculum. And you guys are very intimidating up here. I'm going to say 5 words first: religion, politics, gun control, abortion, sexual orientation. These topics evoke deep felt opinions and beliefs. They have the power to create unfriendly differences and division. I'm here tonight to make 3 points. 1, parents must be informed and give consent when sensitive personal topics are in the planning stages to be taught as part of education to our children, or not taught at all. Number 2, all students must be given the right to opt out. And number 3, what does safety for all students look like? Number 1, parents must be informed. I think it's the school's job to educate and teach reading, writing, arithmetic. Education I don't see for the purpose of creating a child's worldview. They might help to shape it, but not create it, especially without consent of parents or even parental knowledge. All schools must be careful not to assume that they know best for each child's education more than the parents. This requires complete transparency with all parents in the beginning stages of planning. Were parents informed that this study was planned for their child to take? Were all parents given time to review the study before the child was to take it? And did they give permission? Do all parents know that there is already LGBTQ material in the schools and are being used in the classroom? On the KCRG TV interview with Chris Howe of Iowa City Pride concerning LGBTQ books donated to the elementary schools, she said, quote, "The books are meant to help them, the children, understand some things that their parents might not understand even." End of quote. That is exactly where a boundary, I think, must be drawn. There is overstepping that very definite line by removing parents from a deep adult sensitive matters that maybe are not proven to be best for all children. It is a parent's privilege and responsibility to help guide their child, especially in very sensitive value and belief-driven topics, because they do know their children best. Point number 2, all students must be given the right to opt out. In 1963, Madeleine Murray O'Hare won a Supreme Court ruling to end Bible reading in American public schools. Non-religious students were expected to participate prior to this ruling and were not consistently given an opportunity to opt out. The law disallowed schools from including prayer as a compulsory activity. Would any parent here like to have their child indoctrinated religiously, politically, or socially in every class, a view they personally opposed? Number 3, what is safety for all children? True safety is an education where all sides of any topic are represented, and then the student can make their own decision. It is not forced conformity. Making counselors who are already in the schools more visible to all students and emphasizing their availability for any problems for all students could be made a priority. Implementing a complete curriculum in every class, teaching and showing the students kindness, respect, caring, those character qualities, could be done with more specific goal setting. In summary, 1, parents must not be pushed out of shaping their own child's morality and worldview, especially concerning topics which evoke deep value and belief-based differences of opinion, and especially at the K through 12 age level. And number 2, all parents from all walks of life must be given the right to opt their child out. And number 3, providing adult counselor support and teaching children to love all people, whether they necessarily agree with another's point of view or behavior, is safety. Thank you.
Thank you, Ann. Oh, sorry, not Ann, Denise, I apologize. Ann Staley's next with Katie Herbold following.
Hi, I'm Ann Staley. I'm a lifelong resident of Johnson County, a wife, mom, grandma, and also an elementary teacher of Iowa City Schools for over 28 years. I care about all the children here. Since retiring, I have continued to read with elementary school children as a volunteer. In doing that, I feel I can help them with their reading development, but also show them some grandmotherly love that results in lots of smiles and hugs and small conversations. I also support the Iowa City School Foundation. So you see, my heart is still with the Iowa City students. That's why I thank you for the opportunity to address you, the board, and Superintendent Murley. Every student needs to feel loved, affirmed, encouraged, taught, listened to, and cared for. They all need to develop a healthy self-concept and should be protected from any derogatory remarks, verbal or physical. I know you currently are considering implementing a K-12 LGBTQ curriculum. I would like to discourage you from doing this. A curriculum should be balanced, creating a positive environment for all, not just one segment of students. School should be a safe place for all students to exercise their freedoms, convictions, and deeply held beliefs in a respectful manner and environment. No one should be compelled to compromise their beliefs, especially in a classroom, and not by their teachers and textbooks. It is my personal and professional belief that the deep-seated problem that needs to be addressed is bullying and developing good character and integrity. There's much more bullying or disrespectfulness involved with many more groups than the LGBTQ. Kids of all ages like to push the buttons of anyone they can, whether it's fat people, religiously attired, mentally challenged, physically challenged, poor, homeless, as well as LGBTQ. These all need to be addressed. Parents have the main responsibility of instilling in their children principles of gender and sexuality and proper treatment of all peoples that coincide with their principles. The school should not be encouraging kids to reject the values of their parents or to undermine parental authority. Both school and home should be helping children develop a healthy lifestyle. School classrooms should provide a climate of safety for each student, focusing on the general education, not attempting to manipulate young minds. Interventions are needed when any type of bullying occurs. There needs to be a definitive plan in place to address when anyone is victimized, no matter whether it's because of obesity, LGBTQ, religious beliefs, scrawniness, ugliness, poor, inferior academic progress, physical weaknesses. All bullying is alarming and causes all bullied kids to feel unprotected and afraid of the peers and, yes, even the school personnel. As I perused some LGBTQ curricula, one of the assignments I read was to write a story that must have LGBTQ characters incorporated. I don't believe students should have to be doing that. If they wish to, that would be acceptable, as long as it was school appropriate, which is the term I always use with my 5th and 6th graders when we wrote. As a board, I encourage you to protect parental rights. Develop a strong anti-bullying policy that would take into account every segment of our school community so that no one feels unsafe as they are in their school environment. I care deeply about our whole country and schools. Yes, I fall into the conservative belief system, raised my kids that way, and now my grandchildren. Please do not adopt a curriculum that would be against the belief system of any of our Iowa City families. As a teacher, I could not teach this curriculum, nor could I allow my children or grandchildren to be taught this program. I know many in our community feel the same way and would be compelled to seek alternative educational opportunities through homeschooling or private schools. They shouldn't have to make that choice over public education. We need our community working together to build compassion, kindness, and respectfulness to safeguard everyone. Thank you for listening to me.
Steve. clarification before we move on. Some of these speakers are saying that we are talking about adopting a curriculum that's being implemented, but in fact, can you just clarify that we don't have anything in front of us that we were looking at as far as that goes?
Not at this time, no, we do not.
Thank you.
Katie Herbold, followed by Mary Kenyon.
Good evening. I'm going to begin tonight with a statistic that was shared on CNN earlier this week. There have been, since 2009, 8 school shootings in Mexico, 6 in South Africa, 5 in India, 2 in Canada, 2 in France, 1 in Russia, 1 in Germany, 1 in Greece, 1 in China, and 288 in the United States. I, along with my friends, have been coming to these meetings since February, asking to form a committee to address school safety. I have 3 small children. My very smallest child is 3, and he will be attending your first 3-year-old preschool next year at Borlaug. I cannot send my kids to these schools if we don't get the ball rolling. Don't wait for summer to end and come and go. Let's use summer. Let's get going. Let's get this committee going. I have said I would sit on it. I'll head the committee. I have people here that are happy to be part of this committee. We have to do something because obviously we cannot depend on our national leaders. They're not doing enough. Not sure if you read the latest request from Arnie Duncan and President Obama. It is calling for a national school boycott starting September 1st from parents to take their children out of public schools until stricter gun control is adopted. We are better than this, and we have to do something. We have to make a change. So let's go. Let's not mess with the red tape. It's time to move forward, and I'm very upset that I don't even see it on tonight's agenda. Please give us an update. I know you can't respond to me, but we deserve to know what's happening with our committee. Thank you.
Thank you. Mary, followed by Danita Brown.
Hi, I'm Mary Kenyon. I'm a parent of 2 students in the Iowa City Community School District. I'm here tonight to voice support for the task force recommendation to integrate LGBTQ topics into existing curriculum, which was my understanding of the discussion that was had at the last meeting. As a public school system, we welcome all students and families, and all students should see themselves and their families represented in their learning materials. It would be ridiculous to suggest that curriculum materials include examples and illustrations only of girls or only of boys, illustrations featuring only white children or only children of color, stories of families with 2 employed parents or only families with a stay-home parent. We need to have inclusion. My children, who are here tonight, see all of these represented in their current materials. Why not include also families with 2 dads? Families with 2 moms. These are people they know, their friends and neighbors, their fellow classmates. This should all be reflected in our curriculum. Among our students and families, there are endless variations in backgrounds and family makeup, all of whom are worthy of our affirmation and support. At your last meeting, we heard Christian Bible verses cited as a reason not to go forward with this. The fact remains that separation of church and state is enshrined in our Constitution, meaning that state-supported public school curriculum is not based on the Bible. As school communities, our arms are open in welcome to families of all faith backgrounds, or no faith background, as the case may be, but the arm of friendship does not imply the sharing of beliefs and in no way commits our schools to teaching based on religious beliefs. Opponents also cited so-called medical or scientific basis for their beliefs. I know our board members and most of our community are aware enough to know that the materials cited were developed by a fringe anti-LGBT group that masquerades as the premier U.S. Association of Pediatricians. The actual National Organization for Pediatricians, the American Academy of Pediatrics, says this about LGBTQ young people, and quote, Although most LGBTQ youth are quite resilient and emerge from adolescence as healthy adults, the effects of homophobia and heterosexism can contribute to increased mental health issues for sexual minority youth. As a school district and as a community, it is incumbent upon us to stand up in force against the homophobia that is so damaging to our young people, and to create an atmosphere within our schools where all of our students feel welcomed, represented, included, and affirmed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. There we go. Zamita Brown?
Good evening. I'm here to address the situation at Northwest Junior High School with Principal Laura Cottrell. And, you know, I'm an African American community member, deeply concerned about the fate of Black professionals in this district. I'm deeply concerned about the lack of that kind of leadership in our schools. When Laura leaves, there will be no Black principals in this district. And there needs to be some accountability around that. Asking about the fate of Black professionals in this district in leadership positions as principals has to do with a track record that you have and how you treat them. It is not a good record. I don't know what all of the circumstances are that impact how you make these decisions, but I do know that I'm looking at a district that has fallen short of its responsibility to Black kids in this district. So really good work has been done by Latasha Deloche to disaggregate the data. And so we know that our children aren't performing at the same level that will get them the kind of life that they deserve. We know that we're not preparing them to meet the challenges of what's ahead of them. We know this from looking at this data. And so it's incumbent upon you to respond. Don't take this position so seriously that you cannot do your job. There is no excuse to not have one Black principal in this district, to have our children come out of these schools, whether you're socially promoting them, tracking them, not giving the right expectations, not providing the right role models, a curriculum that does not reflect their culture and history. Whatever the shortfalls are, you're responsible. There are enough problems in this country, and we've been dealing with this long enough that you know better. You know better. And we need you to stand up for Laura Cottrell and the future of Black professionals in this district. I'm not asking for too much. And the children that are in these schools deserve that kind of environment. They need an environment where people in leadership positions look like them, understand their culture, have accountability to anti-racism. They need to unlearn their bias. I want benchmarks. I want them to have a place every year that they check off. I did this, I did this, I did this, and that's how come I know I'm showing up for youth of color in this district. Do we have that? We need it. Because I'm tired of watching Black women get treated this way in this district, Black men get treated this way in this district. Now, I want you to do something. I want you to change this. If you cannot stand up for Laura Cottrell, put her in the context of so many other Black women who have had the same fate. It's inexcusable. And you have the power in your hands, so do something.
Thank you, Danita. Okay. We will move on to approving the agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda for our meeting tonight?
So moved.
Second.
Kristen, ready to vote?
Who was the first? Sorry.
Lori, then Sean.
Thank you, sorry. Online voting is open. Phil, I'm not getting anything from you.
All right.
That's okay.
Come through now?
Yep, got it. All votes have been cast, and the motion carries.
To the consent agenda, Phil, is there an update on the bills for this pay period?
Yeah, Sean and I went through the books this week, and I know that everything I found was in order, and that I don't know about Sean, if you have anything to report, or?
I had a few questions as I was going through kind of the check register, but I answered them myself as I went through the actual invoices. Just as a side note, the one thing that always stands out to me when I go and look at the bills is the sheer amount of money we're spending on kids that are open enrolling outside of our district. And
Yep.
I was very encouraged this year that the numbers were going in the right direction. I want to just make sure that they keep going in the right direction, because it's not insignificant when you see that number sitting on a piece of paper.
Yeah, there were some, many six-figure amounts going out of the general fund to other districts, but, I would echo what Sean found, so.
And so for the consent agenda, is there a motion to approve?
Well, I would like to pull items 6, 8, 11, 12, 15, and 17.
I move that we approve the consent agenda minus items 6, 8, 11, 12, 15, and 17.
Second.
Ready to vote?
Online voting is now open. All votes have been cast, and the motion carries with all directors voting in favor.
Item 6, varsity group contract.
Right, 6 and the other one, 12, are closely related, and I made some inquiries. My question on this one is that it's a renewal. I understand there was no RFP originally done. Was this contract competitively bid in the first place, and if so, how many bidders bid, and that? Do you have any information on that? We don't. Okay.
I move that we approve items 6 and 12 on the consent agenda.
Second.
Vote?
Online voting is now open. All votes have been cast, and the motion carries with directors Rotland, Ressler, Godwin, Clausen, Malone, and Eyestone voting yea, and Director Hemingway voting nay.
Graduation rental agreement, item 8.
Right, and on this one, it's just informational. If the superintendent could just refresh everyone, the handicap accessibility at Carver with our 2 graduation ceremonies coming up and everything that way.
Handicap accessibility, as it has in the past, on the top of the concourse with available parking right outside the door.
Very good.
Move that we approve item 8 on the consent agenda.
Second.
Kristen, ready to vote?
Online voting is open. All votes have been cast and the motion carries with all directors voting in favor.
Item 11.
Yes, I would just like a little explanation on this from staff on how often we do this, why we're bringing this forward, and looking in at the scoring between Hills Bank and Midwest One. It seems like it came down to net costs. If you could just highlight what in the net costs was the determining factors on the two different scores.
The district submits an RFP to banks every 3 years. So the cycle is up this year. This is an award for a 3-year period of time. It just takes time to get everything converted, and you have check run out and everything like that, so it's not something you'd want to do on an annual basis. The banks expend energy and resources on their part to serve the district as well, so it's a mutually agreeable that 3 years is a good period of time for that. The net cost is basically looking at what fees they would charge us on our account, if any, netted against the interest rate that they are willing to provide us on our funds that are invested with them. And so that bank that provides us with the RFP at the higher rate gets a better score. Just like you would do with your own personal accounts.
The higher rate gets a better score, or the lower?
The higher rate that they're going to pay us on our accounts,
okay.
Interest earned,
Right.
is offset against any of the fees that they would charge us for NSF checks or wire transfers.
How many years had, Hills was the one that we had before. How many years had they been doing it for us?
3, just like the RFP process. They've been there for 3.
So it had changed from the period?
Right.
Okay.
If they would have had the successful award, they would have continued on, and the banks all know that going into the process.
Okay. Yeah. Very good. All right.
I move that we approve the primary banking services recommendation to Midwest One Bank for a 3-year period beginning July 1st, 2018.
Second. Kristen?
Online voting is now open. All votes have been cast, and the motion carries with all directors voting in favor.
Number 15.
Yes, 15 is the playground equipment at Longfellow. And being on the playground committee and working on making sure that we provide inclusive playgrounds, that what we hear from our speakers and being at the groundbreaking this afternoon, we've had many people talk about the importance of inclusion and feeling welcoming and every student having access and equal participation. I'm concerned that with what we're going forward with at Longfellow, without having the information back from the DOJ and what recommendations are going to come from there, and also not having a long-term plan on maintenance of our engineered wood fiber grounds and surfaces, I'm going to be voting no on this.
Can I get just some clarification, because I'm seeing alternate 1 and 2, and then there's different stuff in there on the surface. So where are we at with this vote? Like, what is the current playground surface?
Well, this particular item does not cover the playground surface. It only covers the equipment. In terms of the surface, the engineers are working with the contractor at the moment at Longfellow, and we're developing a perimeter walkway system and a base, and then we're going to issue another contract for the surfaces. And we're going to get alternates for a artificial turf, grass, like a green turf, and a rubber surface, and engineered wood fiber. And at that time, we'll bring them to the board and consider which surfaces we want to use. We need to determine that before the equipment's put in place, because it adjusts the height to the equipment and how you place it in the ground. So we're still working those details. So this is just for the equipment itself and not for any of the surfaces.
Okay, and I know that we kind of talk, long-term end game of everything being inclusive, and I think that's everybody's goal. And we've also talked about kind of taking, the steps to get there, and it's going to be a lot of steps. So I guess the question I have is, how easy is it to go back and make changes, particularly if you put in like a poured rubber surface or something like that, to go back and then take a piece of equipment out and put another one in as we get farther down the process?
It's probably easier with a wood fiber surface than it would be rubber. You're probably going to destroy it unless you use a rubber tile, and then you can remove the tiles and put them back. There's two types of rubber, well, actually three. You can pour the rubber as one continuous piece. You can use tiles, or you can use rubber mulch. So there's three ways of doing it. Probably the most problematic for retrofits would be the poured rubber. But certainly, I think all these playgrounds, you have the ability to go back and add a piece that you feel needs to be added or included. These are basically the main structures that have to go in the center of the playground. You can still always add other pieces.
I have to admit, I'm going to vote no on this. I'm very frustrated because, Dwayne, what you just said, it feels to me like you don't really understand what inclusion means. It's not just a handicapped accessible wheelchair. It's the way the whole structure is laid out, creating different spaces for kids, and that's not going to be easy or cheap to redo. That's just the way this initially goes in and the way it's designed. We probably have way too much climbing equipment to adequately, I think that's, and I know we'll have this discussion tonight, that inclusion, it's a mindset. And play is very intentional. The way kids play together, if you have a well-designed, inclusive playground, teachers don't have to do much. The kids will just play together. And that changes mindsets, and kids learn that. What this says is, here's how much we value you to put a merry-go-round over there. So you're really not valued. And when I think about the kind of money and the intent that goes into our state-of-the-art athletic facilities and the amount of design that goes into there, and with some of these playgrounds, it feels like a PTO gets to look at a catalog, pick the coolest stuff, and I appreciate the way we do playgrounds now, frankly, with the funding, but I don't see the intention in the design, and inclusion gets us there, and everybody benefits from it. So it's, and it's frustrating that now Longfellow doesn't have a playground, and you put a board in the position to make that choice.
Well, first of all, I would respectfully disagree with you. I understand what inclusion means. I understand that our objective the last 2 years was to use our funds wisely, to create playgrounds that were accessible was the goal. Inclusion is a new concept that started as of the Shimmick playground last year. So we've been working towards that. The committee's working towards that. I also know that we have a limited budget, and unless we can find ways to fund these all-inclusive playgrounds, I think you're going to find that they're going to be not totally inclusive. I was reading an article just yesterday in the Des Moines Register. The Variety Club is going to put in an inclusive playground at Riverview Park, the old Riverview amusement park in Des Moines. It's going to cost $700,000. That's one playground. And that they're calling all-inclusive. But even if you look at that, there's still climbing elements. There's still other elements. There's still slides. There are those type of features. And what we have to do to make them more inclusive is provide access or transfer stations, ramps, things like that. We understand that. And I think that the playground designers propose playgrounds that they know are ADA acceptable. We know that sometimes maybe they're just minimal. We've improved on that. I think the Longfellow playground is way improved. And when you see it, you'll see accessible sidewalks around. You see zero entries. We incorporated that last year just to make our playgrounds more accessible. So it is more than just wheelchairs. I get it. Our staff gets it. But we're also working with a limited budget.
I appreciate that, and I do also appreciate that we did just start talking about inclusion.
We did.
Last spring. But I don't see that.
Also, Principal Pasarek is here, and he would address any questions you have about the process. I know that they spent quite a bit of time designing this playground.
Chris, do you want to say a few words? Don't mean to put you on the spot, but
so the process that we used, what we tried to do was, I think our main priority was to get a sense of what the kids wanted and what they wanted to have as a part of their structure at Longfellow. So the first thing we did is we went out, we were able to get different types of structures and equipment. We turned that into a survey. It was actually a Google survey that we could give to kids kindergarten through 6th grade. So we broke it down kind of by playground structure. We allowed those kids to give us their feedback. We also did the same for staff who are out there doing the supervising and who have done the supervising for a number of years. So they give us feedback on as far as pieces of equipment that maybe they felt weren't safe that we've seen on playgrounds in the past that we've used, and things that the kids seem to use a lot. We got a lot of feedback from our preschool program and their teachers as far as what they felt would be good for the kids that they have in their programs, in their modified program. From that point, we took it back to a playground committee. We had parents that joined that group. Ben helped us out a lot. We took a look at what our priorities would be for that particular structure. And the number one thing that came out for us was keeping kids in mind and what was it that the kids wanted as part of their playground and part of their structure. So with that, we brought it back to the staff, our special education staff, our teaching staff, our supervisory staff. Everybody had the opportunity to give their feedback on a couple of different designs. We offered some opportunities for parent feedback at different events, and I think the one that we put in front of you is the one that the kids in the community were very supportive of at Longfellow. So that was our process, I guess.
In terms of the option that you asked about, Director Clausen, we went back to the playground manufacturer, and they agreed to put in that merry-go-round for no additional cost. That's in there. There is a more inclusive playground or merry-go-round structure that would require an upgrade and would require some type of rubber surface around it to make it usable. So that option's there too. But that basic merry-go-round was done at no cost.
I'm just going to note, thank you, Chris, for sharing that process. For me, and we've had 2 members indicate how they're voting. I plan to vote yes, because we have not yet, as a district or board, provided guidance on what we mean by inclusive play. We don't have the playground handbook completed yet that has addressed inclusive play. We have schools, families, students, staff operating in good faith from a process to design a playground and following the rules that have been established for this process. If we vote no tonight, we are not honoring the process that's been followed. If we vote no tonight, we're going to be keeping students at the Longfellow School from having a playground next year. This is not a life cycle enhancement. This is a brand new playground. If we vote no tonight and don't allow this to go forward, we're penalizing families, students, staff, administrators who have been following the process in good faith. This board, this administrative team has not provided any other guidance. Until we do so, these playgrounds need to go forward. And that will be how I vote tonight, voting yes.
Dwayne, can you explain why we get the designs first before information about what type of surface will be laid?
It's just lead time. We need to get the equipment here. It takes a while for the manufacturers to put it together, ship it, get it here.
And what's that lead time?
Well, they say...
So if it fails tonight and it comes before us again,
right,
the first meeting in June.
One of the quotes said 4 weeks, but experience has told me it takes more, 6 to 8 weeks. And then we have to schedule crews to install them. So we're 2 months away from having a playground at a very minimum.
So going forward, though,
knowing
that it takes lead time, Is it possible for you to do it reverse? Tell us, or present it all as one, that you talk to us about what type of material will be covering the playground as well as the designs instead of this sort of half process?
Well, I think one of the reasons we did it the way we did it was to get, besides the lead time, was to give the landscape architects time to then lay it out and do the appropriate layout at the site. And so it may seem backwards, but actually it's been done that way for quite a while, and it seems to work, but certainly could be done that way. And we would strive to do that in the future, is have it completely.
That's what I wanted to hear.
They hear that from me all the time.
Okay, thank you.
Dwayne, I'm just curious why we decided not to put any ramps at all, anywhere in the design.
I'm not the person to answer that. I wasn't involved in that discussion, so, I mean, I don't know if that was discussed, Ben. Come on up.
So the level of accessibility is always discussed in the meetings as far as whether or not we want ramps or transfers, and in the actual design process. You know, early on in Chimmick, we actually designed it with ramps, and it wasn't until after the base design, I believe, was decided on that the ramps were actually voted to be removed by the PTO. I think in the case of Longfellow, I think we discussed it. We discussed the level of ADA we thought we would actually need, and we thought that transfer stations were suitable. If you look at the 1 through 3 playground, we actually have 2 transfer stations in there, so the student could actually transfer onto the structure from both ends of the actual structure. I think that's about it, unless Chris has something to add.
They're hard to pick up sometimes, Director Rowland, but they're on there. I looked again today just to make sure they were there. They're called transfer stations. There's actually several of them in that whole playground system. Not always the best, but they consider them acceptable. And, you know, an ADA is the regulations are much different than the desires to be inclusive. They're 2 different subjects, and that's what we've been struggling with. We've been doing really good with the ADA and making them better. We came up with those 0 entries last year, and we put them on several playgrounds. These are all going to have 0 entries. And if you don't know what that is, it's like walking into a wading pool, you know, where the material can actually settle, but you still have a concrete access, as opposed to butting it up next to a square curb where if it settles, you have a trip hazard. We've gotten away from that. We're doing a better job of that. We're doing a better job with our designers making sure that they provide ADA accessible equipment. Inclusiveness is the tough part, and that's what we're struggling to do. We hope to get an expert to come in and help us design some guidelines. We're going to talk about that later, but I really think that in spite of what some folks who advocate for inclusive may say, this is a well-designed playground.
Okay, I'm getting into the weeds here, and I admit that. But can you just tell me, like, is it possible to put a swing that would be wheelchair, that children could be strapped into or something?
Yeah, I think the intent is to put that at every playground. We're going to start doing that with swings all over the place.
Okay, and I don't see it in the photo, but maybe it's there and I just can't see it too, or maybe it's not in the photo.
Yeah, go ahead.
So we actually stock 2 different types of ADA swings. One's a 3-point upper body support swing, and then we actually have a full body support swing. Depending on the needs of the schools, we actually will swap those in and out. We're just now finishing the last of the schools to actually get even 1 ADA swing at the actual schools. There's the last couple of them that literally going in the next few weeks. Longfellow is going to be the start of having 2 of those. Same with Weber and Kirkwood and Boardwalk as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, I apologize, it's not in the picture, but we are planning on using them.
Thank you.
Any further comments or questions? Kristen, I think we're ready to vote.
We don't have a motion or a second.
Oh, sorry.
We approve the Longfellow Playground as presented.
Second.
Now we're ready to vote.
Online voting is now open.
I must have timed out.
No, I didn't get it either.
Yeah, we're going to have to. We're going to have to do a roll call vote.
Roll call?
Go ahead. Start now. Lori?
Yay.
Paul?
Yay.
Janet?
Yay.
JP?
Nay.
Ruthina?
Yay.
Sean?
Yay.
Bill? All votes have been cast, and the motion carries with directors Rotland, Ressler, Godwin, Malone, and Istone voting yay, and directors Clausen and Hemingway voting nay.
Thank you. Thank you, Chris, for input. Item 17.
Yes, Appendix 9, and if Dwayne could highlight the Twain project. And I don't know, am I the only one whose computer's frozen up and can't go to it?
I wonder if I have another.
Well, first I apologize, the wrong file was put in your administrative content folder. The file that was put in there is a basic floor plan for Twain. And if you look, I don't know if you can even get it on your individual computers. You have it?
I think they're frozen up.
Mine isn't, but I may be the only one.
Mine's working.
Yours
Just
is?
refresh
Okay.
it.
If you look on that, in the center of that
Yeah,
facility,
I'm
you'll see the
frozen.
courtyard. And in the lower right-hand corner of the courtyard, you'll see an opening where it looks like a classroom can go. That's where the design work has been done, to put that classroom in that space. And in fact, when we did the original Twain project in 2013, we're struggling to keep it in budget. We took that classroom out in that particular location. There are 3 walls that are already there, so adding a classroom at that location means adding a 4th wall and adding a row structure and a floor. And that kind of squares off that area right next to the music room, next over to what's now a kindergarten space. So that's where we intend to add the addition. The actual budget for that, I think it's going to be more, the cost of that should be $400,000 or less, even though the budget item says $1 million. That's $1 million that we had set aside in some of the sales tax funds to be available to use for this project, but it won't cost near that much. And the other thing, there's a mistake on that, on the appendix I have, it says it's a preschool. It is not. It's a classroom to be used however they deem best in the building.
Go ahead.
I was just wondering how this kind of squares with the feedback we heard from the staff.
Well, you know, the staff, we built the courtyard as a result of the new addition that we did, and it is a really nice space. And the one thing I asked the architect to do is to put a door from this classroom out into that courtyard. They're not gonna lose it, it's still there, it's just 900 square feet less. The courtyard itself is probably, I want to say in the 4,000 or 5,000 square foot range, so it's still a nice space.
Because I think what I heard was the need for space, but then that this one classroom isn't going to really even touch the need for space.
After that last meeting, I went back to Principal Negus and asked give him a couple of scenarios. No classroom addition, what would you do with the additional FTE that's already been awarded, and possibly a second FTE if we're watching our kindergarten girls. And then also asked him to do 2 building plans with those 2 scenarios, and then 2 other building plans if you've got the classroom enclosure in the courtyard, which is a completely closing courtyard, as Dwayne suggested. What would you do with that one FTE that you've already been awarded versus 2? And so I think last week when I was down at the Board of Education meeting, we heard riders face issues and the possibility of having to think about doing something with 1 of the 2 PK classrooms. So as he came back with those various scenarios, of course, most ideal would be to add this classroom. Right now, it would be almost a 1-to-1 swap out with the FTE. The challenge will become if an additional FTE is awarded, do we make things in that staffing for staffing purposes next year and try to keep PK? I want to keep PKs in our buildings as much as possible. So it's kind of what we're facing right now. I think in addition to the classroom space, they have 4 special education teachers, 3 ELL teachers, 3 reading teachers. So there's a lot of other spaces that we've had to go and grab this year, and we're pretty much
My question, Dwayne, was just on timing. So when would this proposed room be finished?
Well, it's still being drawn up. I'd like to have the construction drawings available for approval by the end of June. Get it out to bid. It probably will start August at the earliest, and I really think it'd probably take right into the first of the year. So maybe by the second half of the year, it'd be ready.
Okay.
It's going to take time, but 3 of the walls are already there, so.
Right. I guess my follow-up to that is just maybe back to Amy then. So if they're already getting one FTE and we're adding one classroom that won't come on until the first of the year, is there a plan in place for the space until then? Or I mean, additional space needed?
Issues as well, and oftentimes the building principal might take that additional FTE and help reduce class size during core reading and math instruction and do some pull-out. The trick with using that model will be where will we pull them out to. So we've done that. We've certainly seen that happen in the past, even at Lemmy. Up at Garner this year, Nick's taken his FTE and actually split them across 3 grade levels because they were all hovering just over 31 or at 30, and instead of awarding it to the sections where there were 31 students, he awarded it by reducing class size during core reading and math instruction.
Just one more question then. If needed, would there be any of the smaller size or the double temporaries that could be temporarily put over there?
Well, all the small units have actually been placed. They're all out there being used for a lot of different reasons or purposes, but there's none of those available. In terms of the duplexes, there are a couple that maybe are underutilized that we could look at, but for now they're being used.
I just have a quick question. I know Twain is severely in need of the extra classroom space, but I also know how attached they are to that courtyard space. Yes. So can you tell me if that additional classroom would take all of the green space that's currently there as the courtyard, or will any of that remain?
No, I wish we could pull that up. It's
yeah, I have it, but it's not.
It's about a quarter of the courtyard.
Right here?
It's if you Google image it, you can see it right there.
So this area there will still remain.
Okay, so there will be.
There's a ton of.
It's taking about a quarter of the space, I suppose.
About a quarter of it.
Yeah, and you know, when I heard the comments last time, it's, oh, we created a monster. We built too nice of a courtyard. I mean, they enjoy it. Now, that's great. But it's, well, you go ahead and pull
You go
one
to the,
administrative.
down below the
Hold on, I gotta
executive.
log in just a second. Yep.
But he had a good.
Glad you're having the same problems I am.
You're more than welcome to
I've got past mine.
see it if you need
Helps
to.
a lot to see it.
Yeah, it helps.
Yeah.
Well, here,
Sorry.
she should have it within just a
But no,
second.
not what's in a minute, not what's in our content. Paul has, I'm sorry, I'm walking away from the map. From the mic. Paul has it on the Google map that actually has the actual surface, so I can visualize it a lot better than the sketch. Okay.
So it's $400,000 for one wall and a roof.
Well, I'm, you know, under promise, over deliver, whatever you want to say. I think it's going to be less, but that's a good budget number to work with for now.
So Dwayne, I apologize because I can't pull it up and look myself, but did we also get a quote on the 2-room addition?
For design purposes, I did, yeah. If you go back to your April 10th agenda, we awarded a contract to Newman Monson, and we had 2 quotes, one from Shive and one from Newman, and they provided 2 numbers, one for design of 1 classroom and 2. The 2 classroom would probably push $1 million.
So are we, I'm sorry, I don't have it here. Are we
Yep.
bidding on that tonight?
No.
Or, I mean, are we voting on
What
that?
you're approving tonight is a 1 classroom addition in that spot. And you're only approving the actual schematic design. You're not even approving the construction yet. We still need to finish the design work and get it out for bid, so.
Thank you.
Yeah.
But to Lori's question, for the $43,000, we get the design of the 1 classroom plus the other 2 classrooms.
No. If you go back to April 10th, they gave us 2 quotes. One was for doing one, and then a second for doing 2 more.
And both bidders bid for the same scope.
I believe they did. I'd have to look at the actual item to confirm that. I know they both did the 1. I know Newman Monson did the 2. I'd have to look at Shive to see if they did the second room, the additional 2 rooms. Were you there?
It won't let me in because of the way it's in there. It's only for administrative people to see, and I have to join the meeting, which will throw everything off.
You want me to log in?
I might ask you to join the meeting too. Sorry.
So, you can visualize that one little square. It's about 900 square feet, the size of a large classroom. It's right next to the music room, you know, but it was a bonus room when we started way back in 2013, and it got pulled. We're just going to fill in that space is what we're asking you to approve on the schematic design, which you don't have.
You might hear in a second.
There you go. Thanks. So, if you can see my cursor, it's just, if I can get there, that space, there, that wall would be continued across. This would be filled in with a classroom. So I would say that's a quarter of that entire courtyard space. And the access during construction, if we get to that point, we've got a corridor right here, and we've got a doorway into this space like that, so we can do it without disrupting the building. And they're also gonna add a door in the classroom right in that wall so that the students in that room can still go out and use the courtyard. This is the plan. Pretty simple.
And so are we still waiting for a design for the other two classrooms?
No, I didn't, no, I was instructed to do the one classroom. That's what we approved. We haven't.
We haven't gone out for that yet?
No.
Okay. Okay.
Any more questions, comments?
I move we approve Appendix 9 as presented.
Second.
Kristen, ready to vote?
Online voting is now open. You guys getting them this time? No. All right, we'll do roll call again. Lori?
Yay.
Paul?
Yay.
Janet?
Yay.
JP?
Yay.
Ruthina?
Yay.
Sean?
Yay.
Phil?
Nay.
I'm sorry, was that nay?
Nay, it was nay.
All votes have been cast and the motion carries with Directors Rotland, Ressler, Godwin, Clausen, Malone, and Eystone voting yay and Director Hemingway voting nay.
Thank you. Public hearings, the certified budget amendment.
Does somebody have it on their computer? Okay. Now is the time and place for the public hearing on the district's proposed fiscal year 2018 certified budget amendment. Notice of public hearing was published in the Iowa City Press Citizen on May 7th, 2018. Are there any comments from the board? Is there anyone from the audience that would like to advise or provide comments to the board on the proposed fiscal year 2018 certified budget amendment? I declare this public hearing closed.
So we've got the next public hearing on the residential structure and the following real estate.
Now is the time and place for the public hearing on the district's proposed disposal of district property to make room for the planned renovations at Horace Mann Elementary Building. Notice of public hearing was published in the Iowa City Press Citizen on May 10th, 2018. Are there any comments from the board? Is there anyone from the audience that would like to advise or provide comments to the board on the proposed disposition of this property? I declare this public hearing closed.
Thank you. We're up for presentations. Fifth Ward Saints. Welcome.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
So I want to tell you guys a little bit about the Fifth Ward Saints organization that we're going to be bringing to Iowa City. And Diana, which is our school liaison, she's going to speak a little too on community relations.
Hey,
So the Fifth Ward Saints started in...
Before you start, can you just introduce yourself for those of us
I'm sorry.
who don't
I'm
know
sorry,
you?
I'm sorry. I thought everybody knew me. I'm just kidding. No. My name is Carlos Honore. I went to Iowa City West, graduated in 1997, and actually I had an opportunity to come back and speak at the graduation last year. I received the Distinguished Alumni Award, And that kind of what spearheaded the Fifth Ward Saints coming to Iowa City. I noticed a shift in the demographics. I noticed a shift in the scenery, and it was nothing like it was when I was here. Not saying that it was anything bad, I just noticed that, and I spoke to a lot of people in the community that said that there was a need for a program like mine, and I kind of went out on a limb at the graduation and told everybody then that I was going to be bringing the program here, so I followed up, and that's how we're here. So the program started in 2009 by my wife and I, and it just started as a simple football program, giving the kids in the Fifth Ward, which is one of the highest crime impoverished areas per capita in the United States. So it just started as a football team, and we quickly realized that there was something missing at the end of every football practice. So my wife being a social worker and some of the experiences I had in my life growing up, I thought, where would I have benefit if somebody had stepped in my life? And sports played a major part in my life. So we already had the sports piece, so we added the social service aspect. So what emerged from that is a social, emotional, athletic development program. So we've merged sports and social services to create a better outcome for these kids long term. So I'll touch on the case management, which is one of the bigger factors that we have in our program. And working along with the school board, I want to say with the school district, is going to be huge because it allows us to touch those parents and those kids and go into those homes and do those home visits and work closely with the principals and the counselors and all the people that can rally around these kids, like Iowa City rallied around me when I needed it at the right time. And I tell everybody all the time, Reese Morgan was my coach in high school. And the timing was just perfect that I had somebody like that come into my life and was able to mentor me and have those important conversations that I wasn't able to get at home. So he came along in my life at the right time, and I just want to pay it forward. And the experiences that I've had, I have some ups and downs, and I'm to the point now where I feel I can give back. And our program in Houston has been successful. We've serviced over 3,500 kids. Our graduation rate is 43%, just the kids that come through our program. Because the discipline, the things that you learn from sports that you can carry through your life, we get compliments all the time of how behaved our kids are, how well respectful they are. It's just taking time and showing a kid that they have something special, and you bring it out of them, and they'll appreciate it, because I appreciate all the people here that rallied around me the way they did and helped me become the man that I am today. So we started in 2009. Once we evolved into a social, emotional, athletic development program, we started seeing that all the kids that we had in our program still were, the families of the kids didn't understand how to deal with kids that had some issues that we were addressing, whether it be learning disability, behavior disorder, schizophrenia, some sort of underlying issue. So what we've done is our social workers, they do an initial assessment on the kids when they enter the program. And based on that assessment with the kids and the families, we refer them to the necessary community resources, and we build a game plan, if you will, around each of those kids to help them in the areas and communicating with the school district. And what goes on at school gets back to us. What happens in our facility get back to you guys. We do the after-school programming, which is the tutoring and the mentoring, and those red flags that throw up that we can communicate with the principals, with the counselors. Are you guys seeing the same problems we're having? How are they behaving at school? Then, it's like it takes a village to raise a child. What the kid does at home, some of your kids are well behaved at home, but when they get out of your eyesight, they tend to act up and do things they wouldn't do if they were around you. So they're able to communicate with us what those kids are doing at school, so they can't really get away with anything if you have two sets of eyes on you. So that's the village that we mean when we say it takes a village to raise a child. I'm going to let Diana come up and speak. I heard we only had 5 minutes, and I get long-winded sometimes. So I'm going to let Diana speak a little.
I'm Diana Frisbee. I'm the school counselor at Alexander Elementary. I think I just want to start off by saying that when I first heard about this program, one of the things that really caught my attention was we're talking about providing tutoring, academic help, mentoring, activities and involvement for the kids, but also people just pouring into the kids' lives and investing in them. We know it is one of many programs in the community. One of the things I love about the Iowa City area is the fact that there are so many people who work together to provide and reach out to people in the community. I think that there are so many amazing things going on within the school district. I know for a fact, being on ground level, seeing the hard work that the teachers and the counselors and the student family advocates and the administrators and everybody is putting in is just mind-blowing when you're there. Not to mention the fact that there are so many other community agencies and organizations that are also serving. So coming into this, one of the things that I was most impressed by with this organization was the fact that by developing a partnership with the school district, we can provide somewhat of a cohesive sort of plan for the kids that we can then bring in as well some of the other agencies and all work together. Because we know that when we're working smarter instead of harder, we get a lot more done. And one of the things that we run into in our particular school is there are so many people that can see what needs to be done and that are more than passionate about doing it, but there's just not enough hours in the day and hands to do it all. And so this is a way to provide a coordinated effort where the schools, as well as the agencies and the parents, which is such a key factor, are all communicating and working together for the kids' best need. So what we're looking at starting in the fall is a pilot program that would start with approximately 40 youth that we would be providing 5 days a week. We're looking at some different sports as well as some art and music for the kids that as we've targeted towards specifically 5th and 6th grade students, because throughout the community, the feedback that we've gotten is that that tends to be an underserved age group, as well as a very pivotal age group. And so that's where we're really targeting our efforts to start with, and then looking toward providing transportation from school for kids from 5 targeted buildings that within our district have been designated as being among the highest in need. But of course, the program would be open to students throughout the community of any school, race, background. Anybody is welcome to participate as well. And so we want to provide those opportunities to level the playing field for kids and give them an opportunity to have the same opportunities as some of their counterparts who get that on a day-to-day basis, and they might not have that opportunity. So we still have a lot of things that we're working on, very, very hard to get in place, getting program directors on site, getting funding, and working out all of the details, but it's more of an awareness thing as anything for you at this point to know that this is happening and that we're working really hard to partner with other people in the community just to provide one more thing to make our community even better.
One thing that I appreciated was that you guys are going to provide transportation to and from. I know that the Boys and Girls Club that we've tried to start up at Southeast has had some issues with transportation back home, which really limits the people that can participate. So I'm happy to see that.
Yeah, well, and our student survey showed that transportation limited many from participation and everything that way. When I'm looking at your targeting, you're saying that with this program you're looking at serving 40 youths from these different schools. That's your target?
That would be the initial, one of the decisions that we made early on is we really want to start strong and do what we're doing well before we expand, rather than going a mile wide and an inch deep. Mm-hmm. So we really, we've kind of narrowed it down as we've gone. So it's come down to that this is what we're targeting to make sure that we're really setting those strong foundations and the communication and getting all the relationships established between the organization and the school district. And then we'll expand from there.
And I see.
And the other piece of that, I think, excuse me, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but the other piece of that came out was that there are some programming already available for some of our younger students through the 21st Century program, where they're receiving some of the tutoring and after-school supports in some of our at-risk youth. And so this was an area where, with some of the 21st Century programming after school, some of the 5th and 6th graders tend to maybe not be a part of that as much, and then they go home. And so this is something that will then serve those kids in a different way. So that's kind of why we started targeting that age as well.
And also looking through here, I saw that you had more than 2,100 students and their families served through this program. I don't see anywhere, and maybe I missed it, where you have a breakdown of like how many are boys and girls as far as participating in this. And I see that the sports that you selected are soccer, wrestling, and basketball, that type of thing, if you can.
Yeah, we have that now, the executive summary, who served, the amount served, so we can forward that along to you guys and you can have a look at it. So it's all broken down in there.
Okay.
And I wanted to also touch on what she was saying. So at full capacity, we didn't talk about it, at full capacity, we'll be serving 200 kids just from the school district alone. So we're starting out with the 40 just as a pilot program, and we'll add a grade. We'll cap out at 8th grade in 2 years. So we'll start with 5th and 6th, then add 7th and 8th, and we'll cap out at 200 kids per school. And if we feel there's other needs in other schools in the district, we can add those schools and maybe subtract some kids from some of the other schools if they're doing well. We can talk about that kind of stuff, but we know there's needs at other schools other than the 5 that we've identified, which are Alexander, Grantwood, Lucas,
Mark Twain,
and Kirkwood. Those are the 5 that we're starting with initially.
And I would add to that as well that we don't presume to know exactly what the families and the students are going to necessarily want. So we come up with this, okay, here's what we can try. Also talking at board meetings about, we know that, doing some double dutch or doing some stroll or doing some, there's things that different community agencies are already providing. Can we bring some of those things in? So this is a framework to start with, knowing that it's going to be responsive to the needs of the families that we're serving as we go along. The part that won't change is the structure of 5 days a week tutoring, group mentoring, individual mentors who are working with the students, social work services and wraparound services and home visits and those kinds of things. We're not an after-school program. It's not just another after-school activity for the kids to go to. The activities are a hook to get the kids interested and involved so that we can pour into their lives and make a difference in them.
A holistic approach.
Also, one thing you guys talked about at the kickoff, I know someone brought it up in the questions, was, if there was a need for dance or volleyball, whatever it is, you're open to that. So if it's,
for girls and boys, it's
right.
not just for boys. And if there's some girls that want to wrestle, we're not going to tell them no. If they want to, they can do it. So,
Yep.
co-ed soccer and co-ed basketball. Any other questions?
It's exciting, yeah.
Yeah,
Best
we
of
love
luck.
it. I can't
Really.
wait. It's been very successful
Yeah.
in Houston. I have no doubts that will be successful here.
Look forward to hearing the results of the pilot.
I just want to thank you for bringing the program to Iowa City.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
Look forward to meeting all you guys.
Thank you so
Great.
much. Appreciate it tonight. Okay, action items, Appendix 3, MIS schedule. Is there a motion to,
I have a question, and by the way, I apologize, folks, my phone, or my computer's not cooperating with me, so I'm looking at my phone.
I think we're having trouble all the way
We're having
around.
trouble, yeah, I can't
I
get
have to
anything
keep
up.
restarting board docs.
So,
Yeah, just restart it.
okay, so I have a question on the MIS schedule. I'm wondering if at some point we'll want to move the organizational meeting to November at this point?
Yes, but we
Yeah.
have to leave it in there that way for now to get
Okay.
through this year.
Okay.
And then we can update it.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
I move that we approve the MIS schedule.
Second.
Kristen, ready to vote? Probably voice?
Yep.
Online voting is open.
Oh, it is open.
Yay. That work?
Okay.
It didn't pop up for me, so I'm going to say yay.
Okay.
Restart board docs.
All votes have been cast, and the motion carries with all directors voting in favor.
Up next, superintendent directions, 2HI and J.
I have a question about that too, and full disclosure, I say this every single time this policy comes up in front of us. I want to say again, I'd love to see mobility added in there. Expressly stated. I know that we say that we include that in our decisions on the 3J6, but I would I'm sorry, I should have explained what I was talking about. 3J6, under the weighted resource allocation model. I'd love to see it if we could add that word in at some point. And then I would love to see if we could define what is low, average, and high in relation. My recommendation would be to define it in relation to the district averages. I feel like there's a lot of discretion there when we just say low, average, high, and it doesn't provide the accountability perhaps that I might like to see there. Does that make sense? I move that we approve.
Well,
oh, go ahead.
Yeah, no. I've got real problems with the things we're taking out. 9, 10, and 11. We had speakers come here tonight speaking about our lack of diversity in our district. And we are taking out the development to achieve and maintain the diversity goals established by the board.
Well, 9, 10, and 11 referred to our diversity policy, which we don't have anymore. So
Well,
to have 9, 10, and 11 in there with a no policy that it's referring back to is why we took them
And
out.
I'd say I don't say that we take it out, I'd say we get working on our policy.
Right, so we have to take those out then, Phil, because there's nothing in there. It's not speaking to anything right now. Now, if we rewrite a diversity policy or plan, then we would add them back in.
We've got work to do. We've got board goals to set for the year. We've got superintendent goals to set for the year. And I think diversity and equity is going to be on the top of all of our lists. I think we need to tackle these in a thoughtful, stepwise way.
And keep in mind now, we have the comprehensive equity plan that we didn't have when we had the diversity goals, which is a much more, it's a better document, and it's also got some clear goals and some ways to monitor that. And so that's what, this is just referring to the policy that we don't have anymore,
Yeah.
but not to indicate that we're not concerned about diversity.
Correct.
I move that we approve superintendent directions 2H, 2I, and 2J.
Is there a second?
Second.
I
Ready to
guess
vote?
before we vote, I guess that's where I had a little bit of confusion because the part that Phil's referencing is 2A. So are we not even talking about that now?
2A.
Am I wrong?
Just a quick reminder that one of the things that the board does on an annual basis is they review a section of all of the policies. And so whether that's board policies, legally mandated policies, superintendent directions. So there's a schedule that they go through. So this year on the schedule is 2H, I, and J. So all of the directions are included in there, but what they reviewed at the Policy and Governance Committee was 2H, I, and J.
So we're accepting it as a whole, but what was reviewed was those
No, they
three
reviewed,
sections?
right, they reviewed them all. What was on their schedule was H, I, and J this year. They discovered the reference to non-existent policy as part of that conversation.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, that's helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, so we did have a motion and a second. We're ready to vote. Thank you.
Online voting is now open. Some of you have it and some of you don't. Paul, do you want to go ahead?
Yay.
Ruthina?
Yay.
Bill?
Nay.
All votes have been cast, and the motion carries with Directors Rotland, Ressler, Godwin, Clausen, Malone, and Eystone voting yea, and Director Hemingway voting nay.
Thank you. Next up is board governance. This also has come forward from the Policy and Governance Committee.
I move that we approve board governance 2A through 2H.
Second.
Ready to vote, Kristen?
Online voting is now open. Anybody see it this time? Some of you do.
Not seeing it this time.
Janet, you want to go ahead?
Yay.
Ruthina?
Yay.
Bill?
Nay.
All votes have been cast, and the motion carries with Directors Rotland, Ressler, Godwin, Clausen, Malone, and Eystone voting yea, and Director Hemingway voting nay.
Okay, up next, budget amendment. And I'm restarting again. So if I get behind, it's because I'm restarting board docs.
I move that we approve the budget amendment for the fiscal year 2017, 2018.
Second. Who said that first? Lori?
You have to arm wrestle now.
Doesn't matter.
Is there anything that needs to be said about it, or just vote?
We have a motion and a second. Let's vote.
Online voting is now open.
It's gone now. We're voting.
Oh, hey. Ruthina?
Yay.
That was so cheery.
Tired.
Phil, how would you like to vote?
Yeah, yes, yay.
All votes have been cast, and the motion carries with all directors voting in favor.
All righty, Horace Mann Elementary campus property disposition.
I move that we approve the resolution to dispose of the residential structure located at 618 and 620 Fairchild Street.
Second.
Ready to vote?
Online voting is open.
Yay.
Ruthina? And Phil?
Yeah, yes, yay.
All votes have been cast, and the motion carries with all directors voting in favor.
Thank you. Next up is agenda setting for the June 12th meeting. We've got some items in there regarding consent agenda, which are fairly straightforward. We've got an action item around awarding F&P design contracts for 2019 building starts. We'll have a presentation from the Equity Committee focused on ELL. I would like to request that we have an update on the school safety work that I believe Operations Committee has had a conversation about, perhaps not recently, but in terms of...
We gave direction to create it, and so I
We
guess...
haven't yet.
We need, and I echo what was said. We need to move forward on it, and when we had a discussion here at the board table, I also volunteered to chair that committee, and no one picked up on it, so I don't know if that's a lack of confidence in what I could provide for leadership or what, but I share the concerns echoed by the speakers tonight, and we've got to get that started and going forward. And as far as the differing points and things, well, we can always add to the discussion in that, but we've got to get it established. Also, I would like to add on the agenda the dress code update. We had some speakers at the last meeting, like if we have something on that.
Yeah, there was some material provided by Kingsley before the board meeting tonight. I think we could probably use that information and have a discussion at the next meeting. We've got the material already. So in terms of the school safety, is that something we can do, Steve?
We can absolutely provide an update on that. Kate Callahan, who's not with us tonight, is working on putting that together. We're using the same formation process that we used with the Playground Advisory Committee to make sure that we've got appropriate representation from across the community in all segments.
And just to be clear, Phil, you weren't the only one to ask to be on the committee, so don't feel like you aren't the only one that hasn't heard back yet either. So don't take it the wrong way is what I'm saying.
No, why would I?
Well, I'm just saying the way that you said it.
I would never take it the wrong way.
Is it possible to get an update on RAM and some of the questions related that was raised tonight?
I think that's good.
So have that added?
Yep. Steve? Yep.
In fact, Steve, I think it was last year in July we had an update on that with a presentation, so something similar to that would be helpful again.
And are we going to get a update on the screening process?
Don't know yet.
So on the RAM update, do you have your staffing set for next year? Okay, if you could provide that, that'd be great. Thanks.
Anything else? Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.